all of us can take a good picture.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think I'm incredible in the moment, and then I look at them and go, well, that's garbage. What have I just done?
Or the editing
what
software.
What is that even a picture of?
Yeah. I mean, there's, all the companies have moved to subscription-based models, so you can't even just buy editing software and have it on your computer as a one-time cost. You're paying, $50 a month to Adobe just to be able to edit. They don't even do any of the work for you, They just create the tool for you to do the work.
And lighting. Oh, there's just so many things.
Yeah.
If you're going to have like nice pictures. I mean, if we're just going to share them to Facebook, it's one thing. But if you actually want pictures you can print and blow up and do nice things with.
Yeah.
Even my wedding photos, I mean, now because I didn't save them appropriately, they're like pixelated.
Yeah, you can't get that resolution back once you've done it.
Yeah.
So I'm hearing you need a do-over or a refresher.
Well, I know who my photographer's going to be. You did my adoption.
There it is.
I've already tested
vow renewal.
My name is Christina Julian. I own Sense by Design. We're a pour-your-own candle and custom fragrance bar located right on University Ave in the neighborhood of the arts.
So what do you like about Bossy?
I really like that Bossy is a really inclusive, open space. I feel comfortable talking about what I'm dealing with in my business and asking for advice, and it just feels really authentic and real. I don't know, I think there's a lot of networking groups and there's a lot of options for where you can spend your time as a business owner, and I think that Bossy is one that I really get a lot out of.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, I want to ask you a personal question. Is that okay?
Yeah, please.
One of the things that we often get as business owners is it's so nice. You're your own boss and you get to make your own schedule and you can do shit whenever you want and blah, blah, blah.
We call those the must be nicers.
Must be nicers, yes. Right. And there are plenty of benefits, which is why we keep doing it and why we don't quit and go back to a 9-to-5 or a corporation. Mm-hmm. We don't have to get into specifics, but I happen to know that your personal life
is a shit show right now.
Has had quite a lot of surprises lately, and they seem to be kind of piled up and back to back. And honestly, just getting through like one of those with running your own business would be a lot for most of us, but having multiple. How would you describe running your business while handling all of the things you've been handling?
Yeah. So when the weird string of really traumatic have to deal with personal events started happening, it was back in March. And luckily for me, March is kind of my slowest part of the year. Corporations are just starting to need to do work because their budgets are setting over. Weddings haven't really gotten under full swing. People don't want spring portraits taken because it's still snow on the ground. So that was a slower part, and I was able to just kind of email all my people and be like, hey, it's going to take me an extra week because, I've got this going on. And then April was traumatic. It was every 30 days, this random, unexpected, big thing to deal with was happening. And I lost a full week there, and really the ability to work around the clock when I needed to, was important. I'd spend time with myself as I needed to, and then business might happen at midnight, or 11 p.m. or whenever it could fit. If it was important, it got done. If it wasn't important, it got put to the side. And it's nice to be able to do that, but I don't have the benefit of taking family leave where I get, X amount of weeks to just go home and be with myself. So it's really hard to juggle the needs of running a business and keeping it afloat because let's face it, I'm a sole proprietor. I don't have employees who can get my back. I don't have, nobody else is going to check off the tasks on the to-do list. So they still have to get done because nobody's giving me a break. So having to balance that and still having to do that while at the same time mourning and dealing with, unfortunately, it's slowed. So my dad passed in April. And in March, my son was diagnosed with this super rare genetic disorder that was causing him to fall a lot. And it was really scary and a safety problem. And like still trying to find the time to like mourn my dad while still being like, and I've got to get this email sent out to this person. And oh, did I even ever invoice that other person for this job I did 2 weeks ago? It was just a lot. And it slowed down my ability to mourn my dad in the way that I really want to. And then boom, a month later was another tragedy. My other son was involved in a horrendous car accident and broke his neck. And like, I still wasn't dealing with, I still hadn't had a chance to fully mourn my dad. But now we're working into wedding season, and it's like, you got to keep going. You have these contracts that have been on the books for a year, and you can't say, sorry, I'm not showing up to your wedding. These people entrusted me with that, and I respect that, and I am so grateful for that trust, that you just dig in and find a way to keep going. But you don't get, a couple of weeks off of bereavement and a, family leave time and all these things that like the normal 9 to 5 would give you. But I am working from home now because of COVID. And so work could happen when time allowed. And so I put a lot of weight on my assistant editor / second shooter who had just moved last year to California, but he was still doing some editing for me, and I've just leaned more on him. And it's great because he's in San Fran and struggling for work, and so he's more than happy to pick up some stuff, which has given me some time to be able to deal with all this craziness that just seems to not stop from happening.
When you talk about you've got a wedding to shoot, but you're dealing with whatever at home, and people think, oh, it's a few hours, just get through it. Like you buck up and you get through
12 hours. It's 12 hours just to be there. It's the day before to charge the batteries. It's up until 4 o'clock to import all the footage and make sure it's backed up so you don't lose anything. It's never just a couple of hours.
And how much is the editing time?
Oh, hours and hours and hours and hours and more hours.
Can we ask that again just in case I didn't pick up?
I was going to say, let me just hop in here and ask you how many hours is the editing? And that's the thing that I just know from my sister being a photographer and people giving so much attitude about certain things. When you break it down and you say $2,500 for a 6 hours thing, it's actually not a 6 hour thing. It's actually more like a 24-hour thing. And so to kind of explain that breakdown a little bit more, because it also has to do with that being okay with saying okay and being okay with leaning in on your network.
Yeah.
And it's okay to do that, especially because as a business owner yourself too, but like, thank you for being so vulnerable. But that's something that we all have to give ourselves permission for, is that we're allowed to have these things. Just because we don't get the 2 weeks of paid bereavement leave, we still deserve that.
Oh, absolutely.
And we still need that.
Yep.
So thank you for putting that out there.
Oh, absolutely. It's so important. And I still, unfortunately, like the one weekend that I had like blocked off to like be with myself kind of and celebrate my dad and mourn him and be with him.
Morning?
I scheduled my morning, it happened to fall within this same time that I was going to be, I had saved this time for myself for 6 months because my friend was doing this awesome women's retreat where we were going to walk on fire. And it's like, my dad would have totally dug that, right? And like, I specifically went there alone. I planned on sleeping in my tent by myself. It was yoga and meditation and walking on fire. and it was the weekend that I needed for myself. And in the middle of that weekend was when my son got into the accident and I was pulled out of that weekend to go deal with this next tragedy. So I still have to replan
Your
a night
morning time?
to go sleep in the woods and be by myself.
You have
and
4 hours next Wednesday.
Well, and maybe next March.
Right.
Just don't plan anything for next March. You have next March.
Next March?
Yeah, next March.
It's your quiet time. Don't take anything.
Right. Mourn dad in March.
We laugh, but that's how it is. I mean, there's things I'm scheduling out for a good 6 months from now just to take time by myself.
Yeah, and you have to do that. You have to be able to plan for that. And I think that's something unique to business owners, you know. They have to plan me time, because if they don't, it'll get filled in with to-do time or client time or somebody else wants something from you time or family time or kids time. You know, whatever it might look like, if you don't schedule it for yourself, it oftentimes doesn't happen. So literally putting it in the books is the only way I've found to actually get it to happen.
And in your situation, that's awful. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, but you know what?
Because that's not something you can handle in the books.
Right.
That 3 hours that you have by yourself is
Right.
not necessarily the 3 hours that you're going to be in the headspace.
Yeah,
to deal with
and
all of it.
figuring out like ways to still be positive and still like move forward. I have a lot of things to be really grateful with all of these things that have happened, right? Like my son now knows and has a diagnosis for what's going on with him. He doesn't feel like it's all in his head anymore. There happens to be a medication that helps with it. It's going to be a lifelong thing, and it's going to be debilitating for him for his life, but it's manageable and it's like somewhat treatable. And so we're grateful for that. It could have been so much worse. And I thought it was so much worse for a couple of days. You know, my dad, he was suffering and he was hurting and he was tired and he wasn't living the life he wanted to be living. But he died in his home and on his own terms, and he wasn't in a hospital, and he wasn't, you know, my brother got there and he wasn't alone. Like there's things to be grateful for that, right? My son broke his freaking neck, but he's not paralyzed and he's going to walk again. Like there's all of these awful tragedies that just keep happening to me. Like there's so many like lights inside them. And I think that's a lot of even how business works, right? As entrepreneurs, there's all this shit, right? It's like the books and the insurance and the figuring out why so-and-so takes every Wednesday off when they said that they could work it. And finding like the reasons why it's good and the reason to keep going is so worth the bullshit of being an entrepreneur, right? Like you gotta look for those silver linings, or you're not gonna be open next year. You're just not gonna be able to be.
You have to have a different kind of grit
Yeah.
to do it, because you need to, because there's shit in life no matter what you do and how you deal with it.
Yeah.
But there's a different kind of grit to be able to keep moving forward and multitask your emotions and work.
Yeah.
And you can't just call in sick.
You know, I had 3 weddings in one weekend 2 weeks after my dad died. And I've never done 3 weddings in a weekend. And one of them was because I was hired 2 weeks. Like I was on the phone with this client when I got the call about my dad. And it was like her wedding was in 2 weeks and her photographer had backed out and she was helpless, and she was like friends with other clients of mine that I dearly love. And of course I'm going to take your wedding, right? Like, but it meant there were three weddings in a weekend, and that was a lot. And the first wedding I shot after my dad passed was a wedding for a family who I love dearly. I shot the sister's wedding, and then this was another sister's wedding. And their dad had passed. So there wasn't that father-daughter dance, right? And I don't think about that, right? And there was a mother-daughter dance, and that was wonderful, and it was beautiful, right? But that Saturday, don't you know, that freaking father of the bride reminded me of my dad so much. And here I am trying to like separate personal from business while I'm standing here shooting this father-daughter dance, and it's just like breaking me, but you just find a way to keep going, right? And you do, right? As business owners, we just do. And it's when we stop wanting to do that we close shop. And that's okay too, because there's a lot of people that close up shop and they just get to the point where the doing isn't fulfilling in the same way. And I think respecting that is huge, right? To love yourself that much, to be like, you know what, this isn't fulfilling me in the same way it was. I need something new. And I don't think I think we look down upon that. And I think that's
Wow.
that's a huge thing to be able to gift yourself is the willingness to close your doors, you know?
Which is not easy.
Ooh,
I know,
okay.
right? Where do we go from there?